All right, everybody, welcome to Unscripted and my still unnamed studios here in Columbus, Ohio. A special guest today, really inspirational, especially where we're at with COVID and challenges and mental wellness and all those things. So let my guest introduce himself and we'll go from there.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for having me. I'm Christopher Greco. I'm the author of the book, 8 Steps to Overcoming Everyday Adversity. Also CEO of a startup in Kansas City called DealWise. I'm just excited to be here and ready to rock and roll and get started.
Yeah, and so let's start with the book because that's really our connecting point was the book. So let's talk about the book. But before we get to the book, there's a story that you have, a personal story that led to the book. So let's start with that, if you don't mind. Why don't you tell us your story, and then from there we can go into the book.
Yeah, sure. And so I lost my dad when I was 15. That's basically where the story the story starts. Providing that background, my brother was 11, my sister was 4 years old, and I had the idea of writing the book, 8 Steps to Overcoming Everyday Adversity, for years and years and years. And about 3 years ago, I lost my best friend in a car accident. Mm. And his wife asked me to give the eulogy, and his oldest son was 11. So when I got up to the podium, he was a really successful business person, entrepreneur in Indianapolis. Loved him. He and I just saw eye to eye on a lot of things. And in fact, I almost went to work with him a few months before he died. So it was very impactful, but it was an honor to give the eulogy. And as I'm sitting there looking at his son, all this emotion came over me. And what do you say and to the son? What message do you want to give him? So after the eulogy, a lot of people came up to me and felt really moved by it. And I just said, look, I got to put pen to paper on this book because I have a lot in my head that I need to, put into the book. So I basically I know you're a family man as well. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find time to do things, right? Outside, you got to make a living and spend time with your wife, your spouse, and your kids. So I just booked 4 or 5 a.m., 3-4 mornings a week, 2 hours, and just got writing. And finally I had about 10,000 words, and I said, okay, we're on our way. And I spent about the next 6-9 months getting into a place where I can bring on a publisher. And that was in 2019, and we launched in September of this year.
Very cool.
It's actually on Amazon, and it's gotten 42 reviews, and sales are always tough, but it's growing, and I'm really happy. I'm getting personal, calls and emails, where people talk about specific points of the book that really impacted them. So I'm grateful that if it impacts one person, for me it's a success.
And you and I've spoken before, and I would tell you the two things that I told you, I think the first time we spoke, and that was, I think number one, I guarantee your dad's proud of you because,
Thank you.
Not just for a book, but because of who you've become. At 15 years old, you had to become provider and protector in your home. You were the oldest child. And so I guarantee that your dad is proud of you today. And I've never met him, and hopefully I get to meet him one day in heaven. The other thing I would tell you is, I know your brother went into service for our country, and for that I'm thankful. Anyone that serves our country, that allows my family to have freedoms, I'm very thankful. So those two things I really want to make sure that I say again to you. But in terms of writing the book, the timing couldn't be better for such a time as this, in terms of adversity and what we're facing. And I would tell you really quick too, in college, I lost 2 of my closest friends to a car accident. So I've felt that pain.
Wow.
And it was instant, but then the other thing I would tell you is I also lost a good friend about 10 years ago. It's hard to believe, 10 years, almost 10 years this month. I lost a good friend of mine to colon cancer, and I too gave his eulogy, and it is tough. It's tough to look the children of your friend in the eye, and especially when the kids are your kids' age, man,
Yep.
that just hits different. And so, I'm with you. I feel you on both of those things, losing a friend, but also losing a friend and then having to speak into his family's life is difficult, but it's life-changing, I think.
It,
And it gives you a chance to evaluate. So it sounds like you really had that chance.
yep. It definitely. I mean, what's interesting about it feels, it's almost like as humans, our back has to be put against the wall before we really act, right?
Right. Right.
And my message in the book is that it doesn't have to get to that point.
Yeah.
You know, if you there's a story, my story, and then I also talk about my brother who's a stud. He, 11 years old. I went away to school. I went, from Miami to Washington D.C. He ran the household. The same thing when he was 14.
Wow.
Spent Friday and Saturday nights at home watching at the time, my 7-year-old sister. So my mom could pick up a couple extra shifts as a nurse,
Right.
make it to make ends meet. So he and my mom are really the hero of the book in my mind. But when I look at the story, and then I reflect back, okay, what got, because all three of us are successful. My mom is still alive; she's 83. She's healthy. She had a little bit of dementia setting in, but she still remembers a lot. But she's happy, and I would consider that our story is a success. So what are the steps that I really there's a lot of steps. What were the really key ones? And it came out to be 8. I didn't go out and say, what are the 8 steps? What are the key steps?
Yeah.
And of the 8, I think the most important one is the first one, which is affirm I'm not a victim. Because, and I was a victim. I felt like, God has it out for me. Everybody's wearing nicer clothes, nicer shoes. Their dad's coming home every day. I got screwed.
Right.
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 There's no good ending to that story there's no good ending with that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that I had the right mentors to quickly. I mean, it was about I would say maybe a month or two after my dad passed away. I was playing victim, running around with the wrong people, making trouble, not being a good example, not being the example I should for my brother, making it not really as easy as I could have for my mother. But I quickly snapped out of it. I think the first step, affirm not a victim. And then the step that it's a phrase that my mother always used, was that, she said, Christopher, you can do anything and everything. And that's a mom, right? But
Right,
as humans, we can do, so the step is you can convince yourself that you can achieve almost anything and everything that you want. Almost, right? There's some limits, right? I'm never going to be able to play, beat LeBron James. He can spot me 60 points. It'll still be 60-0, right?
Right. Absolutely.
It will be 60-0. I want to be clear on that. It will be 60-0. But
yeah.
The point is that we got to believe that if we set our mind to it, we can. I know people hear it all the time, but there's hearing and there's believing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm finding with the book is that people are saying, okay, I think I believe it, because there's a story that the foundation to the steps are the story.
Yep.
Just a normal guy. I'm not famous. I'm just a normal, regular guy who faced a problem, dealt with it. And now, I'm CEO of a company, right? 20 people, growing revenue, product that changed the lives of small business owners, and I'm proud of it, and so I'm proud of what we accomplished, together as a family, and I'm proud of being able to pay it back by writing this book.
And there's 8 steps in there, and you just mentioned that you've not only run the current company, but you've also helped other companies as well, right? I mean, that's some of that, from what I understand, that's the role that you've taken on, is you've assisted other companies who've been very, very successful. And I think a lot of that you've had a hand in. So that's why I say your dad's got to be proud of you, and our dads would be proud of us no matter what, because you and I are both dads. We're going to be proud of our kids no matter what they do. But, it is pretty special to know, given the adversity that you faced early on. And that's why I think the book is so powerful. Given the adversity that you faced, you were still able to go on and achieve and continue to achieve amazing things, because a lot of people could get really stuck in the, as you just said, step number one, and that's not being the victim. And I think in 2020, we've all been the victim, whether we like it or not. We've all been the victim in some way, shape, or form. Our poor kids have been the victims of losing seasons and losing, school and everything else. So what are some of the other, and you don't have to go through all 8 steps, because I wanted people to go get the book, but just to give an idea, I think in a year that we're looking at adversity straight in the eye, and I think for most of us, we have to admit we're facing adversity, where a lot of us just like to ignore it and it's just noise. We're facing adversity. What are some of the other ways that this book can help?
I go deep into one of the steps focus on mindset. There's fixed mindset, where this is where I'm from. This is who I am. I can't do anything about it.
Right.
There's growth mindset. I know where I come from. I know where I'm going. I know where I am, and I know where I'm going. Right. Growth. That again, you can do anything. And I think that when COVID hit, look at 2020. I don't want to. I'm just thinking. I launched a book and I became CEO of a company. It's a pretty good year in the COVID year, right?
Right.
And Dave Ramsey talks about this all the time. Like he does. And I think in one of his books, he talks about he's walking along the street and he talks about 2 landscapers, and there's a 2008 recession. One of them says, my business is not doing well. Woe is me. And about an hour later, he comes across another landscaper who says, I'm crushing it. I have more business than I know what to deal with.
Right.
It's part of mindset. You pivot, life is not this straight line.
Yeah.
It's curved. You take a step backwards, you take forwards, take 5 steps backwards. It's just a matter of, okay, just keep grinding and keep moving forward. And that you got to maintain the belief that things are always, if this book communicates anything, things always take longer and harder than what they seem.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Things always take longer and are harder than what they seem. I don't care where you're finding love, getting married, staying married, losing weight, finding a job, getting promoted. I can go that list. I can go 100 deep, right?
Right.
And I think that part of the problem, the societal problem that we have, is that too many people that are unproven, unaccomplished, are now preaching that things should be easier, that you're a victim, that it's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
And that's completely wrong. That's not how life works.
Right.
Right. There's no such thing as the free ride, and there's no such thing as an overnight, in 99% of the cases, an overnight success.
Yeah.
Things take time. And it's unfortunate that especially our kids, they're just not, they seem to be being taught differently than maybe you and I grew up, Aaron. Right.
What is the quote? Overnight success usually takes 15 years. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a famous quote, and I think it's right on. We all we didn't gain. I didn't gain all the weight that I've gained in COVID overnight. And I'm not going to lose it in the morning, but being consistent and being open and the same mindset that I had, as you said, the same mindset that I had to gain it, I got to have to lose it. I think that absolutely. Overnight success, there's viral, right? There's that moment.
Yep.
But getting to viral, whether it's a video, a TikTok, a Instagram post, a blog post, a video, a podcast, you had to put in a lot of work. At some point, something's going to catch fire if you're lucky. If you're lucky. And if not, then that work taught you something. Every day that you came in and did another podcast and then wrote another blog post, went to the gym, whatever it is, that for every person listening to this, which I want to talk about because you've done some pretty amazing things. that didn't happen overnight, and it certainly didn't happen without the work. So you got to put in the work. And one of my key principles in my business career has been own it. Two seconds, own it. You got to own it. And if I fail, I got to own it. If I do well, I got to own it. And if people would just own it, as you said, I think, mindset would be different if I would just own my mistakes. I'm not the victim. I either created this situation or I was fortunate in this situation, but either way, I got to own it. I got to embrace it. I got to really take it on, and it's mine. I got to own it. So with that, you've had some pretty tremendous sports accomplishments in terms of, so let's talk about that. Because again, we talked about this before. We have discussed this. You've had some huge accomplishments in terms of triathlons and an Ironman, correct?
Half Ironman, because I gotta respect those who did the full Ironman, which is actually it's 120 miles versus the 70 that I did. But I can't. My wife always says to me, seriously, you're gonna underplay the fact 70 miles in 6 hours.
Right.
Right. Swimming, biking, and running, and you totally cramped up from heat. I did a 70.3 Ironman in Tempe, Arizona.
Wow.
And as soon as I crushed I'm a swimmer, so the swim was easy. The bike went very well. And I got off the bike, and half mile into the half marathon, the 13 miles, I just totally, my legs locked up.
Crazy.
And you think about, I think it was Lacey Johnson. Now this gentleman has no legs, and he did the 13-mile Spartan race,
right,
on his, essentially on his arms. And he just popped in my head, and I said, and a few others, and I said, all right, let's just get to mile one. Just get to this water station.
Yep.
Use some potassium. You're cramping up. And then get to mile two. And I was trying to pace like a 9.5 minute mile. And I was only able to hold 10:30 because when I tried to speed up, my calves would just start cramping again. So that was the set of cards for that. And I was trying to break 6 hours. I did 6:07 or something, but whatever. I finished it.
Right.
That surprisingly, that run, that 13 miles, I ran it 86% of the time.
Wow.
Which I was really surprised given how much I was cramping up. But those distance events, and I'm not built. I'm 200 pounds, 6 foot. I'm not built like a lot of the 160 pounders passing me, right, on the bike and the run, vroom, vroom, right? Yeah. You're just trying to get through it. But yeah, those type of, when you do those things that really challenge you, and anything that challenges you, a 5K might challenge you, a mile, just running a mile, just that's a challenge, right?
Absolutely.
That's a huge challenge.
Right.
It helps you grow, because when you do that, you're like, let me see if I can do 2. Because I did 3 triathlons before I did the Ironman.
Wow.
Half Ironman. And I did a sprint, and then I'm like, I could probably do an Olympic. Okay, I'll do an Olympic. I'll do another Olympic.
Right.
Or 2 sprints Olympic. And then I'm like, you know what? Let me just take the leap. Just go and train. And yeah, it was one of the best experiences in my life.
And it really is. And we again, you and I have talked about this before too, but anybody, even if you do a 5K, a couch to 5K, you walk a 5K, you did it. And it doesn't matter what the time was. You're not going to get to the gates of heaven and they're going to say, well, I don't know, you only did, nobody cares. I mean, at the end of the day, you can say, I did a 5K, I did a 10K, I did a half marathon, I did a full marathon, I did an Ironman, I did a half Ironman. Who cares? You did something that no one can ever take away from you. And when you put that medal on, it means something that day. It means something. Sure. And you and I talked about it as well. The fact that if you ever want to get some inspiration, go to the finish line at even a 5K. Just go to the finish line and stand there and look at everybody crossing the finish line. Yep. And they won't tell you your story as they're finishing. Yep. Every one of those people has a story. And there, a lot of people are doing that for someone, for themselves, to leave something behind. It's an accomplishment, man. That's a huge accomplishment. And I had to think it helped you as you wrote the book. And I think I asked you this before, and I apologize for forgetting. Did you write the book after or during that training?
So the book I actually put pen to paper after.
After. And I had to think that all that
was 2017. Yeah, it was after.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point about how everybody has a story. For your viewers, if you Google or go to YouTube and just Google the Chick-fil-A training, they have an excellent training video that's foundational on everyone has a story, and they use it to train. If you go into Chick-fil-A, it is a much better experience for fast food, right?
Right.
Than going to a McDonald's, right? The way, may I refresh your beverage?
Sure.
People walk the employees will walk their food out to you sitting down, right?
Right.
And the training, and I met Dan Cathy, the president, and I read part of his book, and it's an amazing philosophy. But yes, if you go through life understanding that everybody has a story, it really changes it changes your perspective, and it'll change the way you treat and deal with people.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. And I was talking to a friend of mine today in Virginia, and we were talking about the podcast, and I said, man, I just said exactly what you just said. Everybody's got a story, and I just want to help them tell it. And he said, everybody needs to hear a story.
Yes.
Wow. I was like, man, that's a shift for me. And it almost shifts how this podcast goes. Is I felt like I wanted to get people on like yourself to tell their story. And the reality is I want people to hear the stories of people like yourself.
Right? We're not pioneers, right? We're not pioneers. We got to see that somebody else has done it. And then we're more inclined to do it. But then we're like, I'll think about it. And then you finally see 1, 2, 3. And I think there's several 100,000. I might even be 1 million people that have done an Ironman. I don't know. I think the number is that big, but it's just surprising how many people seek to try and accomplish something, but they have to see that somebody else has done it first.
Yeah. Somebody's got to pave the way, but at the same time, every one of those finish line stories is different.
It is.
I'm trying to get a PR, whether it's I'm just finishing for my kids, whether it's I overcame addiction. There's a million stories at that finish line. So at the end of the day, man, you've done it.
The concept that you bring that up, Aaron, the concept of your personal best or personal record, that's important for living life, because you can't always be comparing your performance to another. And my swim coach in swimming or running, your competitor is the clock. I mean, while you're in training is the clock.
Yep.
Right? And the concept of doing your personal best every swim meet or every day, were you better today than you were yesterday? Personally, I think that's a great way to live your life. Were you better today than you were yesterday?
100%. And it's funny because I have a daughter that swims, I have one that runs track, and I have one that plays baseball.
Nice.
And it's interesting. They get it from my wife. It's interesting. It's interesting because track and swimming, it's all based on time.
Yep.
So you could be on a track all by yourself, where you bet. Baseball is a little different, especially because I have a pitcher. So you can throw 75, but if you've got movement, who cares? You could throw 99, but if you have no movement and they're sitting fastball, you know what I mean? It's been interesting for those three, but all that to say, we're getting ready to turn the calendar, another page on the calendar. A lot of people are looking at it, and I don't know where you are. We've never talked about it, but I imagine you're probably where I am, and it's just another date on the calendar. But a lot of people this time of year, new resolutions, and a lot of people I think have taken 2020 to evaluate, where the heck am I and what's going on in my life. A lot of us have struggled through a lot in 2020. So as someone who's written really a fantastic book that helps me face adversity and also probably helps me set some goals for myself in 2020, what's your best advice? Because again, I don't want to give away the book, but I do want you to really talk about Why should I get the book? What's the best advice in that book that's going to help me as I turn that calendar from December to January?
Yep. Well, I would definitely say, I definitely say get the book.
There it is.
Right.
Yep.
There,
Yep.
right. I would definitely say get the book, because you can see how quick of a read. I mean, this is a 2-hour read. Drop your Facebook, your Twitter for a couple nights during the week or weekend.
Right.
Get through the book. There's really three sections of the book. There's my story and the story of a couple others. And then there's an area for reflection, and then there's the 8 steps.
Yeah.
So you actually can reflect and write in the book. And I believe, so the advice is this: look, without commitment, you'll never start. Without consistency, you'll never finish. And I find that what the underlying factor to both of those is, if you're going to commit, you need to write it down. If you're going to be consistent, you need to write it down. And I think that whatever goals or objectives you have for yourself, you need to write it down. So my advice for 2020 is reflect on it by writing it down. Okay. My way of reflecting for 2020 is I wrote a prayer. I wrote an adversity prayer that I recite almost every morning.
Right.
And it's basically inspired by the events in 2020 between COVID, leaders making bad decisions about it, and some good decisions, but good and bad decisions, watching how some people deal with it, how I dealt with it, how my family dealt with it. And then I've written some objectives down for 2021, but it's ongoing. I mean, the art of writing things down and gets yourself, I think, committed to doing what you wrote down. I think that's important. It just can't be verbalized. For me, it's just been it's an important part of your life's follow through.
And we're living in technology world. I can't even say it right. We live in a world that our iPhones are everything. So but I think in the same respect, in case I don't want to write, because nobody writes anymore,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
I could still put it in Google. I could still put it in Apple Notes or Google Keep or Good Notes or any of the zillion apps that are out there. I could still commit it to paper. I could commit it to something where I put it down, right?
The thing I'll say this is that we are in a digital world, but there's something to be said about having some analog time.
Right.
And that's so if I think that 75% of my book sales are the paperback. Awesome. The other 25 are Kindle, which is fine. Kindle, it kind of feels like a little bit like a paper a little bit, but I think that the analog time is important. So yeah, I would almost be kind of push on, hey, just get a pen and paper, write it down, and put it somewhere where you can. I'm sure everyone's gotten this advice before, but it's not the advice. It's are you going to act on it?
Right. Yep.
And I think that the advice, kind of in the book, I think some people will find it to be unique, especially when they get the first 4 steps, the way it's phrased, how direct it is, it's action oriented. The back 4 steps, I think people will be like, wow, I really haven't thought about life in that way. Mm-hmm. And I just encourage, pick up the book. And if you like the book, tell me your story. You can go to my website, ChristopherGreco.org. And there's the place in there where you can send me a personal message. And I love to, hear from our readers. I've heard from a bunch of them, and I'm really happy to hear how moved they are. And it's just encouraging to me because it's a big time investment to write it, to write a book, no matter how big or small.
100%. And I have a lot of people that have asked me to write a book based on my blog earlier years. And
good.
Someday. I always say that, right? Someday. Maybe that'll be in my goals. I'll write that
down. Are you an early riser or are you a night owl?
Both. I'm a lack of sleeper.
I just get 5 hours of sleep a night, Chris. That's how it is, right?
I'm a lack of sleeper. Right. I'm up early. I stay up late, and neither one's good for me. But no, man. So you mentioned it. In case somebody's driving down the road, what are the links? You mentioned one already, and I'll have them in the blog post, but
Yep.
what's
So
the links?
it's www.christophergreco.org. That goes right to my site. You can buy the book, and the link will take you to Amazon. If you go to Amazon, if you type in, 8 Steps Adversity, it'll come right to the top.
Awesome.
It'll come
Awesome.
right to the top. So, and I think David Goggins' book it might be above me or below me, but he's a well-published New York Times bestseller. But yeah, 8 Steps Adversity, and it'll come up. There's a Kindle version and there's a paperback. I encourage you to get the paperback, and hope to hear from some of your listeners, Aaron, and just happy to spend the time with you today.
Man, we've met twice now, and
Yep.
I've walked away both times really inspired and appreciative of your time. And I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. I really do. And thanks for coming on. I hope this book helps people as we face 2021, and God only knows what's next. Truly, God only knows what's next.
God only knows. You're right.
But at the same time, we can always be prepared. We can always work on ourselves. We can take this opportunity to not necessarily take adversity. Hey, and I've said this on a few things. If the one thing I thought of wanting to do when they shut down everything was start a podcast, and here I am talking to somebody that's written a powerful book, and that's just one of. It's just been an amazing ride for me, despite the adversity, despite so much loss, despite so much disappointment in 2020. Man, I'm thankful that I get a time to spend with you and to meet you and
all on this side. On this side.
Well, I don't know that we'll be running any Ironmans anytime together. But man, if you ever come through Columbus, you always have a place, and I'm thankful for your time and your friendship. And we'll make sure we get this up, and hopefully people will take a look at it, man.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right. Merry Christmas to you. Talk to you soon.
Likewise. Merry Christmas.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.